Are you looking to take your character builds to the next level? Do you want to power build your next adventurer? Or do you have an existing character that's maybe a little subpar? Then I think multi-classing may be the solution that you're looking for. Mixing and matching classes can help you realize the perfect character concept. So if you dream of the perfect Sorkadin, Bardarian, Hexadin, then just remember character creation is only limited by your imagination. Hey everyone, I'm Heavy J and I've been a DM for nearly 40 years now. Many players struggle with what multi-classing is and how to optimize it for character builds. I know that I did when I first started out. Today I'm going to share with you the key to unlocking the most powerful builds in Dungeons & Dragons has to offer with this episode's guide to multi-classing. Today on Fat Dragon Adventure. First, let's understand what multi-classing is. Since all classes are front-loaded with features at level 2 and 3, by taking a few levels in multiple classes, you can end up with a suite of powerful options that will often combine quite nicely. That being said, many players forget that multi-classing is technically an optional rule in Dungeons & Dragons. As a result, always make sure that you check with your DM before going down the path of the power gamer. Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game first and foremost, and not all DMs are keen on allowing multi-classing as it can take away from the story sometimes. A multi-class character is a character who has taken levels in multiple classes. Let me give you a couple examples. A character who has 5 levels of fighter and 2 in barbarian, or 2 as a cleric and 5 as a wizard, are both considered 7th level multi-class characters. So this leads to a new consideration when building a multi-class character, and that is prerequisites. Now, take a look at this table from page 163 of the Player's Handbook. Multi-classing typically requires that you have prerequisite ability scores to pick up your second class, though some dungeon masters do away with this requirement. I know that I do sometimes because I just want to keep things simple at my table for my players. This is where planning becomes key. Due to these prerequisites, players who plan to multi-class a character often come up with their plan at character creation. Otherwise, it's very easy to build a character who doesn't meet required prerequisites ability scores, and thus spoils their fun at the table. So let's talk about hit points, proficiencies, and features when you go to multi-class. Hit points and hit dice as a multi-class character align with the levels of the classes you have taken too. So a 5th level fighter, 2nd level barbarian would have 5d10 hit dice from the fighter class and 2d12 hit dice from the barbarian class, for example. The same thing applies to proficiency bonuses as well. Your proficiency bonus is equal to the total level of your character from both classes combined. So in other words, a multi-class character's proficiency bonus is the exact same as a single class character of the same total level. However, the proficiencies you get from picking up classes will vary. While you receive all your proficiencies you would get as normal from the class of the character you start as, other classes you pick up will only grant you certain proficiencies from their list. For instance, a character who multi-classes in a rogue only gets 1 skill from the class's skill list as opposed to the usual 4 skills. Lastly, class features including things like channel divinity, extra attack, and unarmored defense don't stack either. If you already have this feature from another class, getting it again doesn't give you another use of it. In other words, a 5th level fighter, 5th level barbarian doesn't get to attack 3 times from having unlocked the extra attack in both classes. You still only get to make 2 attacks with the extra attack as normal. Now let's take a second and talk briefly about fixing poor character builds. Most character classes work just fine as a single class. I feel that multi-classing, however, is a great way to fix, poor character builds. You should multi-class when you're looking to address gaps in your character's capabilities, such as poor action economy, maybe a low AC, or you want to start casting spells. As I explained earlier, many classes work just fine as a single character build, but sometimes these new class features can really add a lot to your character. Let me give you an example of something that happened not too long ago at my table. I have a player, Big Mama, who was playing a rogue, and she found a pseudo-mithril half-plate. Since she was a rogue, she was not proficient in medium armor, and she really wanted this armor, so that at the next level up, she took one level of fighter, and that was her solution because fighters are proficient with medium and heavy armor. And as a bonus, since this was mithril armor, it did not impose any stealth penalties. As you know, rogues really rely heavily on their stealthiness. Now let's talk a little bit about how to calculate multi-class spell slots. Multi-class characters determine the spells they have available and can prepare as normal for each class. So, for example, a second level cleric, fifth level bard would know 3 cantrips and 3 first level spells from the cleric list, as you can see if you open up the player's handbook on page 57. They also know 3 cantrips and 8 spells from up to 3rd level from the bard list as well. I think that where things really get complicated is that the number of spell slots this character has available are not present on either class table. Instead, you're going to find those on an entirely separate multi-classing spellcaster table found in the player's handbook on page 165. I believe that's in Chapter 6. Chapter 6 goes over multi-classing in great detail. All multi-class spellcasters use this table to determine the spell slots that they have available. So, depending on the classes you've multi-classed into, you will have to calculate your multi-class spellcasters level differently. That is really a tongue twister, isn't it? The rules for calculating your multi-class spellcaster's level are as follows. And if you kind of keep this in mind, it's pretty easy to figure out how many spell slots that you have. So, if you take levels in Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, or Wizard, count all of them when you're determining your total multi-class spellcaster level. Now, if you've taken some levels in Paladin or Ranger, you would count only half your levels rounded down. And finally, if you've taken levels in Eldritch Knight Fighter or the Arcane Trickster Rogue, you would only count a third of your spell levels rounded down. So determining your multi-class spellcaster slots can seem daunting at first. However, it's quite easy when you understand how it works and you use the right table that I mentioned that you can find in Chapter 6 of the Player's Handbook. Now, some of you may be wondering, are there any drawbacks to multiclassing? And I'd have to say that the short answer is yes. There are some drawbacks to multiclassing. Multiclassing can prevent you from reaching higher level abilities. And I think another drawback is with the time it's going to take you to get to your 9th level spell slots if you're a spellcaster. Also, I think that multiclassing limits the levels of spells you can know. So let me give you an example, or let me give you one example. Let's say that you're a 4th level wizard and over the last 4 level ups you took 4 levels of cleric, for example. You would have the same spell slots as an 8th level character, an 8th level cleric, but you wouldn't know Fireball or Raise Dead, for example. And I think that missing out on these things will severely impact your damage output and thus impact the effect that you can have on combat. But let's think about this a little bit, though. I think that a lot of games don't make it all the way past 12th level. At least that's what the statistics say on D&D Beyond and all the studies that they've done. A lot of them are just peter out around level 10. So are you ever going to get to those 9th level spells slots? You know, most games I'd say no, unless you're doing a one shot and you're starting, you know, at level 20 or level 19, something like that. So I don't think it's going to be that big a deal. But you need to keep these things in mind. So choosing multi-classing can help you build the ultimate character. But I just want to make sure that you understand when you choose to go the multi-class route that you are aware of these limitations. So with that being said, tell me about some of your multi-class characters in the comments below. I'd really like to hear about some of your power builds and some of the adventures that your multi-class characters went on. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you'll never miss our next episode. Until then, Dragon Riders, ride that bad dragon. See you guys next time.